participants, I think we can begin. So just to remind everyone, this session will be recorded. Currently, we're also live on YouTube.
Recording in progress.
So before we start, I've also sent the Slido link. I'll resend it now in the chat so that you can join our interactive polls later. Before we start, just a bit about me. So I will be your host for tonight. I'm Richmond. I'm currently QA team lead in Cambridge University Present Assessment. So I've been working in the software industry starting 2010. I started as a software developer actually, and now I've transitioned to a QA role. So I'm here. I've joined the Ministry of Testing PH as a volunteer, and I cannot give more importance in being volunteers into this kind of organizations so that we can wider our reach and also our learnings. Um, I write about testing and development in writtenandtested.com. And if you'd like to connect with me, you find me LinkedIn as Richmond Camero. So Ministry of Testing is the biggest and most supportive global software testing worldwide. So we believe that the more we can get testers coming together, the better chance we have to advancing our industry in a good and positive direction. So we share what we learn, and in result, we also learn from you guys. Ministry of Testing actually started in Cambridge, UK, and the one here in the Philippines started in April 25, 2019 in Asian Institute of Management. Just a few announcements. Next week in Cypress User Group Philippines, we'll be having a meetup about gaining confidence with Cypress Test. This will be on Wednesday, September 29th, also at the same time, 8 to 9 p.m. And also for our next meetup here in Ministry of Testing, we are looking for 3 more speakers. So we'll be having a panel discussion on automation strategy. So if you're interested to be one of the panel speakers, please contact MoT-PH in our Facebook page. So I'm now going to introduce our speaker for tonight. ROWENA is a software quality engineer at Cambridge University Press and Assessment. She has been with the company since October 2017. Wang's journey on accessibility started with her being curious about how persons with disabilities use the web. This led to passionate self-studies, training, and certifications. In her free time, Wang loves to create and paint, and you can find her artworks in ROWENA Paints in Facebook. Please welcome Mr. ROWENA, our speaker for tonight. Hi, Wang.
Hi, good evening and welcome to Ministry of Testing webinar. So, yeah, I'll be sharing my screen. Okay. I forgot how to share. Can you see now my screen?
Yep.
So, how is this? How can I make this? So, yep. So I'll just move this one here. And yeah, welcome again. And yeah, for our session tonight, so I'll be sharing to you this topic, Be Accessible, a practical guide to accessibility testing. So introduce myself. So I'm ROWENA, but most of my colleagues call me Wei. And yeah, I'm one of the accessibility enthusiasts and champion for Cambridge University Press and Assessment. And also for my part, I also do painting. So I'm a self-taught watercolor and art acrylic artist. So for today's agenda, I'll be sharing you some introduction about accessibility, also understanding the four principles of it, also some accessibility guides, tools used for testing, and best practices, and what should we do next. And before that, I have a question for all of you guys who are attending this webinar. On a scale from 1 to 10, how knowledgeable are you in doing accessibility testing? So I think Richmond sent the link to the Slido poll, so you'll be able to answer the question. So from 1 is the lowest and 10 is the highest. So we'll be giving you 1 minute to answer that question. And yeah, are you already starting to answer?
Your answer is coming in.
Yeah. Mm. We're getting answers and different levels of skills for their knowledge. Yeah. Should I vote as well? Can I vote?
Yes, please.
Yeah, maybe around 7 or 8, probably. Yeah, I'm not yet on that expert level. Yeah, I think it's already 1 minute. Is anyone still answering the poll? Oops, we still have it. Yeah, so I'll just share the result. So we could see here that 22%. Oh, so 70 benefit those with disability as well those who don't have. So knowing that introduction, who are the beneficiary of having accessibility on our page. So it's also good that we understand the four principles of it, why we should um, consider accessibility on our websites. So we have these four um, principles. We have perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. So the first one is perceivable. So it is information and user interface components must be presentable to users in ways they can perceive it. So this means that the user um, must be able to perceive the information being presented to them, and it must be visible in all of their senses. So next one is the operable. So user interface components and navigation must be operable. So for example, we'll be using keyboards and we have temporary situation that we cannot use the mouse. So having the keyboard to use so that we could navigate the website. So it's also part of being our site operable. And next one is understandable. So information and the operation of user interface must be understandable. So this means that the user must be able to understand the information as well as the operation interface, and the content or operation cannot be beyond their understanding. So our content should be easily to be understood. And lastly is robust. Content must be robust enough that it can be interpreted reliably with a wide variety of user agents, including assistive technologies. So mostly of our users who have disabled, they use as assistive technologies, for example, screen readers and other technologies that might be helpful for them to access our web page. So having those four principles, we'll be able now to have the guidelines that if any of these are not true or our site was not able to comply with these principles, the users with disabilities will not be able to use our web. So under each of the principles, we have the guidelines or what we call success criteria that might be helpful for us to address these principles, and our sites will be accessible to them. So we have another question here. Since mostly of us are beginners to accessibility testing, so we have again the Slido for you guys to input or to add your input. So what are your current challenges in accessibility testing? So we'll give you again 1 minute to answer that question. So while you're adding some your thoughts about that, your challenges, so I'll be sharing mine. So I think the first challenge for me is I do have a little knowledge about it before, because yeah, I think accessibility testing is not that familiar um, with other teams. So I don't have anyone to ask except for, yeah, I'm looking for someone who I can ask for about accessibility. So yeah, we also need to be we need to do self study for us to learn about it, and also for the tools that I'll be using that might be helpful for me to do more accessibility testing so that I can widen my scope. And yeah, those are some of my challenges. So we'll be looking to the speeder. Um, Richmond, I think I will not be able to see their answers, so maybe.
Yeah, I think. Well, I think if you answered, you'll be able to see the results. I think.
I think I can see the answers. Or maybe you could also type your answers here on the poll, on the chat. Um, Maybe which one are you able to? Will you be able to share your screen so that we could see their answers?
Yep.
Okay, so I'll stop sharing for the meantime.
You're going.
Oh, wait. Are you sharing it? Oh, yeah. So can you zoom it like it? Incorporative accessibility testing to our current process. Yeah, we have also knowledge, user journey, and tools. Yeah, we're the same. We're having the same challenges, and I think it is that. No clue. First exposure. Yeah, it's good start for you. And lack of knowledge, scope, and the is this one the limitation of the testing. Um, Organization has little concern with accessibility testing. How to start? Is it needed in our project? Um, and yep, we'll all those challenges. I think we'll be able to answer or yeah cater those challenges on our next slides. So yeah, thank you for answering that question for your problems and challenges. So I think we just have the same challenges. And I'll be sharing again my screen. Oh, wait, how do you share it again? Oops, you can see my Outlook. Yep. Can you see it now?
Yep.
Yep. So having those challenges with accessibility, we've noticed that there is challenge there that how to start, what are the guidelines, I think. So I'll be sharing you some of the guidelines that I'm using and our team is using. So here, these guidelines are based on the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines or the WCAG. So it is also available on their site. So I've also put the link there, if you could see below. This is a link where you could also check the some of the evaluation that you could use to check accessibility on your pages. So first is we have page titles. So page titles are shown in the window title bar in some browsers, and they're also shown in browser tabs when there are multiple web pages open. And it is also shown in search engine results used for browsers, and also it is being read by the screen reader. So having this page title, what are the things that we should check for as a part of our accessibility testing? So first is to check that there is a title that is adequately and briefly describe the content of the page. And next is to check that the title is different from other pages on the website and adequately distinguishes the page from other web pages. So we have an example here. So I do have two tabs for our one of our projects. So about Cambridge Advanced Online and homepage Cambridge Advanced Online. So when the screen reader, when we enable the screen reader, it will read the page title as the first one. So we need to make sure that our page or our site have this title tag because it is the one that the screen reader will be reading. So we should make sure that the page title contains um, the the description of the page that is currently active. Because, for example, our current page is home page, but the page content is about, um, for example, about page. So the users will be confused, especially those who are using screen readers because they rely only on the screen reader because they can see. So they have the data that will be sent to them is different. So we should make sure that is correct. So that is for the page title. The next one is image text alternatives, or what we call alt text. So here, especially on our team, we have those images to, for example, for our partners, so they have their logos being displayed on our sites. So we need to make sure that every image has alt with an appropriate alternative text. Um, so also we need to check that if an image conveys information useful for interacting with or understanding the web page content, then it needs alternative text. So I'm not sure if you can see this image. So here I've highlighted this image. So it is a logo for one of our partners, and I've highlighted also here that it has the alt text. So when the screen reader reads it, it will check the alt text and it will say that what do you call this? APSA preprint homes. So that is the one that the screen reader will be reading. So we need to make sure that if the image is conveys information that is useful to the users, we should add alternative text or alt text. And also, if an image is just decorative and people don't need to know about this image, then we could still add the word, we could still put the alt, but with a null value, so that the screen reader will just skip it because it doesn't have like useful information for our users. So we have here another photo or image that displays that this image is decorative. So we need to make sure that our images must be classified with as informative or decorative. So if informative, we need to have the alt text. And if decorative, it's okay if the value of the alt is null. So that is our second guide. And next one is the text headings. So web pages often have sections of information separated by visual headings. For example, if the heading text is bigger and bold, To make this work for everyone, the headings need to be marked up. That way, people can navigate the headings, including people who cannot use the mouse and only use the keyboards, and people who use a screen reader. So here I've added a screenshot. So here is a sample of a heading structure. So we can see here that there is a heading 1, and so for heading text or heading structure, we need to check that, oops, internet is unstable. Is my audio still okay?
You can you cut a bit, but you can still hear you now.
Oh, okay, I got internet unstable a while ago. So we need to check that the page has a header, and in almost all pages, there should be at least one heading. So all text that looks like a heading is marked up as a heading. So we need to make sure that if we think that the title is a heading, we should put a heading or we should mark it up. And the heading hierarchy is meaningful. So the first one is H1, and the rest will just comes next. So H1, H2, H3, H4. So H6 is the smallest one. So it's okay if in your page you only have H1. So it's considered that the page will, if the screen reader will check your page, it will look for the H1. So that is also one of the first that the screen reader will read. So we need to check that as well. And next, for the text category, we have color contrast. So some people cannot read if there is not sufficient contrast between the text and the background. For example, if our text is gray on a light background. So we also need to consider those people who are visually impaired, so they need high contrast. For example, dark text on light background or bright text on dark background. And also for those people with reading disability such as dyslexia, so they need higher contrast because of their disability. And also for us, to check the color contrast, we need to make sure that the text should have a contrast ratio of at least 4.5 by 1 from normal size text. So here I've added a screenshot for to check if we're using the correct ratio. So we have for color, which is green, and also our background color, which is like brown, black. And we will be able to see the result that this is an example that the will be able to comply with the color contrast ratio that is at least 4.5. So it is already acceptable and passed the accessibility test. So it's also important that we check that color contrast on our pages. So next, we have the text resize. So here, because maybe some of our users who are nearsighted or farsighted, they need the text on their pages that they visited to increase. So they need to zoom in or zoom it out or increase the size. So we need also to check those scenarios that if the if we increase the text size, the text does not appear or get cut off on our screen, on our page. And also if the text have images and other content, they do not overlap to each other. And those buttons, form fields, and other controls are visible and still usable. And also when some of the pages, like if they zoom in or increase the text size, we could see the horizontal scroll bar below. So it's part of the accessibility guidelines that if we try to increase it, the horizontal scrolling should is not required to read the sentence. So our page or our sites um, should be able to fit the size, or should be able to fit the text as the user increases the size, the text size, and also when they try to decrease it. So everything should still be fine, and yes, still be usable and visible to our users. So we need also to check that one when we try to zoom in at 200% or lower than 100. So that if you'll be able to check that the text doesn't disappear or getting cut off, so it passes our guidelines. So next one is for keyboard access and visual focus. So usually this keyboard is being used by those who are visually impaired because they only rely with our keyboard. So we need to make sure that our elements are will be able to tab to all. So it means that when I try to press the tab key, I'll be able to move from one element to another. And also I'll be able to tab away. So from when I'm from element 2 going back to element 1, so I'll be able to do that as well. And also tab order. So the sequencing when I do the tabbing, so it should be left to right and top to bottom. So if the when I do the tabbing and the order is not correct, the users will be confused on what is the current active element um, that is being tabbed, that they'll be able to tab. And visual focus is we'll be able to see which element is the active one. So for example, I tab to element 2. We should be able to see that um, it is focused there. Like we can put white or green background to that text box, or from the bottom that it is the current one. And all functionality must be accessible via keyboard. Yeah, as I've mentioned a while ago, that some of our users, especially those who are visually impaired, rely only on keyboard. So we need to make sure they are keyboard accessible. And also for the drop-down list, we need to make sure that all the values on that drop-down are being, we'll be able to scroll down or go to them, and the screen reader will be able to read for the users. And also for the image links, we'll be able to go there as well. So that is for the keyboard access and visual focus. And next one is forms, labels, and errors. So we need to check that all our um, elements, for example, the text fields and buttons, will be able to access them via keyboard. And also for the labels, that there are correct area labels to those elements. And also the required fields and other extra instructions. And also should be able to handle error handling. So if the user click the submit button, but there is a lacking to the required field, or he or she was not able to add to that field, so the error message should be announced as well by the screen reader. So yeah, that's for the form, labels, and error handling. And yep, so for other checking, so we need also to check for moving, flashing, or blinking contents, because maybe we have a user that is sensitive with moving objects. So if they see like our flashing contents moves very quickly, they might have seizures. So we need also to consider the motion of our moving contents. And also for the multimedia, video and audio alternative, we need also to consider adding transcript or subtitles to those videos, and also basic structure check for our HTML codes. Um, So those are the some of the guides that usually I use and our team use when we do accessibility testing. And for us to enable to widen our scope to have this accessibility check, we need also to look for tools that might be useful as well. So we have here another question for you guys, especially those have who voted for 6-7 on our poll regarding accessibility knowledge. So what are the tools you usually use for accessibility testing? So we'll let you again to answer to our Slido for that. We'll give you a minute. And
So far, we have one answer: screen reader,
yep,
NVDA, Google Wave,
yeah, good.
Axi tool,
So two, yeah. What else?
VoiceOver, yeah, for Mac.
Okay. You can see here. So mostly those tools that they've inputted are more like screen readers that we could use for manual testing.
And accessibility insights, Axi tool, color contrast analyzer. And there's also some here in the chat: Chromebox, NVDA, VoiceOver,
Was
TalkBack, TipSurf.
okay. We only have 7 seconds for our 1 minute. Yep. So it's good that we're using the same tools as well. So yep.
To
So
add a few visual alerts, Google Chrome extensions like Axi DevTool, Wave, and NVDA, Lighthouse,
yeah,
Site Improve Accessibility, and Headings Map browser extension.
yeah. So I think most of our teammates are here because I'm seeing familiar tools. So here we've listed some of the tools. So I've categorized them for the screen readers. We do have NVDA, JAWS screen reader, Apple VoiceOver, and Orca. So Orca is being used in Linux, but as we're using Windows and Mac, we're familiar with using NVDA, which is with the JAWS. For the screen reader, it is also good tool because it's a Chrome extension. It's just easy to add it on our browser. And for Apple, I think it's a built-in screen reader as well. So here we have I've also added some of the Chrome extensions that we could use for manual testing. We have accessibility insights for web, AxiDev tool, and Wave evaluation too. So these extensions also helps us to find and provide solutions to the violations that will be found during the evaluation. So they provide like lists and reports as well. And also I've added the headings map because we also mentioned on our accessibility guide that will also check the heading structure. So we'll be using headings map to easily check the structure of our headings on the pages. So we also need to consider mobile testing for accessibility. So I've added here Android accessibility suite and voiceover. So the talkback is already inside or is already part of that Android suite. So it's already like a package to it. So when you try to upgrade your accessibility check on the mobile phone, so it will allow you to update the tool. So we already found the tools that is being used for manual testing. So we need also to check on how we could automate accessibility testing. So we'll give you again 1 minute so that everyone will be able to know what are the tools you are using for automating it. So I hope you'll be able to add your inputs there.
So far, there's Ali,
Okay, so Ali, our favorite, Ali.
Cypress Apps,
Okay. what else? What else can we put?
Yeah, there's just two so far.
Okay.
So maybe people are wondering, even accessibility, we can also automate, right?
Yeah, because I think we're only familiar with manual testing, but yeah, it's also good that we have also tools that can also help us to automate or to check accessibility testing by automating it. So I think we could move to our sample. So here we've provided some tools. So Cypress Acts is it's a coding one, so you could install it using the npm. So these are the sum of the results. So it will display the violations that were found on our pages, and list how many of them, what are the issues that being violated. And also we can use Lighthouse. So we saw there on our manual testing that we are using Lighthouse. So we could also use that Lighthouse for our automation. So Lighthouse, it is a tool or a plugin that we could check the performance of our pages. So it also checks the SEO and PWA record. So we just need to put some threshold so that if our page reach that threshold, it will pass our assessment or evaluation for the performance. And also, which the PALI is also mentioned there in our poll. It's also same with Cypress apps, but they're different on how they present their the violations being found on the page. And lastly, for mobile, so we should not forget the mobile device. So we have Scanner. So Scanner is also automated tool that checks the page and also provides records, or I think reports on the issues being found. So all of them uses Axcore as their library. So we could on the end of our slide, we'll be sharing to you the resources for those tools. So here we have, if you still have time, we could show you a demo on how we do our manual and automated testing. So I just share my screen. Rich just mentioned to me if I read if we have still time to, or how many minutes should we allocate for the demo. So I just share my slide, my screen rather. Oops, I can see my face. Yeah. So here, this is the PALI tool. So it is open source. So we try to deploy it on our team. So we can see here it's automated, and it displays the errors, warnings, and notices that can be raised on our team meetings, on our stand-ups, and also with our product owners if those errors should be considered to be fixed. For example, we have this task. So when we check here, so this is the result. So we can see here that it runs every day and it catches the errors. So the errors here, so we have 5. These are the errors that can be considered to be fixed or critical. Critical issues that violates our standards, which is the double A for the WCAG, and also displays here the solutions and also the selectors being violated. So here it runs daily, and also we could download here the CSV, and we could also download the JSON file. And for example, I wanted to put another task to check our page. Oops, I hope it's working. So I'll just get a link and add a new URL. So this one is free and open source. So I'll just and also put the URL. So it will, when this task run or being executed, it will check the URL that we placed here. So we can also select the standard. So this one is the default, and we could also put the timeouts and also some of the actions if we wanted this task to click some elements on our page. And also we could ignore rules for us to ignore them. When this task was checked, we'll be checking, and when I add it, by default, you need to run it manually. So Pali is being run headless and on Chrome as well. So we just need to wait for the page to load the results so that we could check the errors. I hope it displays the error. It could take a little longer because of my internet connection. But I hope oops, yeah, it's great that we don't have any errors anymore for our for our test environment. So it's a good sign that our test environment is healthy, and yeah, because we don't have errors which are critical, and but we still consider these warnings that yet here the color contrast, but these warnings are issues, but yeah, the it's not that critical with the errors here. So this is one, but this one is still for POC, but some of our teams are already using it because it a little bit helpful for us. So this is how we automate them. And also we show to you the Cypress Axe, Lighthouse, and Pali. So I already ran a while ago. So we have here, so this one, so it displays the errors of our page. For the Pali, oops, so here, oh my god, it displays an error. But it should be able to display the error as well. I'm not sure why they failed. So yeah, because maybe of my internet connection, because um, Cypress relies on the your internet connection. So if your internet connection is the same with me, so you'll be able to encounter some of these errors. But yeah, this is one of the implementation for the Cypress. It is also part of our POC, so we're still trying to explore them. And also for the headings map, so because I mentioned it, so it is a Chrome extension. So we just need to add that, and you will see here the structure of our heading. So it is correct that they are correctly being marked up, and yep. So these are some of the tools that we could use for our for checking the accessibility manual and automated. So I'll share again my other screen. Screen one. Yep, so that is for the demo. So I hope, I'm not sure if it's too fast, but I hope you'll be able to see them. And so here we have another question. What are your best practices in accessibility testing? Oh, I can see my face. Yeah. So we could add your comment on the Slido. So I hope you'll be able to put some of your inputs there. So while waiting for those, we could also share our best practices when we're doing accessibility testing on our team. So we have here to create checklists or guidelines for a basic checks for accessibility. So those accessibility guidelines that I've shown on my previous slides, so those some of the lists that we usually check for our team, for myself as well. And also considering doing accessibility checks on desktop, tablets, and mobile views. So it is good that we check all of them in different sizes. And yeah, I think using the emulator will just display the same behavior as desktop. So it is more useful that you use tablets and mobile views. So one of the challenge for that is you need also to learn how to check accessibility on mobile devices because you need to set up your phones on the how our users usually use it. So you need to enable your accessibility on your phone. So we already tried that, and yeah, it's a little bit challenging. And also including accessibility insights during development. So if your projects or the websites that you are checking is user interface or front end, so it is also good that we include our accessibility insights during those times so that the team will be able to consider it, especially if your team will be undergoing accessibility audit. So it's also good that we have that checking or implementing accessibility earlier rather than after the audit will be able to find more issues. So yeah, the time and the cost will be huge. And did someone put on our
So
slide
far, we
though?
have one answer. It's not included in main automation. So I think this is pertaining to automated accessibility.
Okay, so um, here for automating the accessibility, we can still automate them, but not all of them. So some parts that can be automated, like checking if the image has alt text, and the elements have area labels, if they are correctly the color contrast for the images as well as the heading structure, but not all of them are automated. For example, we still need to check if the area label being added to our element is correct because the automated test will not be able to check that. So we also need to do manual testing those for those scenarios. So yep, and having those best practices, um, accessibility guides and the tools. So here, the one I've mentioned are online resources. So I've learned doing accessibility testing using this link, so we could share those to you. So we have here the edX. So they are free, but if you want to have the certification, You need to pay for them, and but some of them are free, and we have also AbilityNet, which is a good one for resource because they have free webinars and also paid ones, but they are good. And also for that university, we could also learn manual testing there. And for the automation, the one I've shown to you earlier, we have Cypress Apps, Cypress Audit, and the Pali dashboard. We have also Test Automation University course that focuses on automating accessibility testing. And also for the guidelines, if you wanted to study more or create a guidelines on your guide, those links to you so that you could create also your own checklist that you could use. And what is next? So this one, having if we found those issues, it is also great to share your findings with someone who can fix accessibility barriers. So I think the someone mentioned here are the devs that can help us. So by sharing it, we'll be able to let our company or organization that accessibility plays important role with our website with our team, and also encourage thorough accessibility. It is part that will be able to have internal or external audit so that we'll be able to know that our site are being accessible with our users. And I've also put the link here, so you could also check preliminary evaluation resources that you could use for your team. And I think that's it. Thank you for listening to our to our sessions. And if you do have questions, you could email me or connect with me on my LinkedIn. And I hope you'll be able to learn something. And yeah, happy accessibility and be accessible. And, um,
So much, Wayne. If you have questions or please fill it in our Slido Q&A. And I've also fired up the last poll from you, Wayne. How frequent are we in executing our accessibility tests? So I already also fired up that poll. So far, we have one question from CyberPow. I think this is a good question, Wayne. What's the difference between accessibility and user experience?
um, accessibility and user experience. I think they're not different, but they it looks like they complement each other because having user having user experience um, because the wait I'm thinking oh it's a good question because I think it's part of the difference of this accessibility and usability as well. Um, because accessibility relies on the technologies that we use and user experience they focuses on how users use how users use those technologies, so I think they can be related to each other. So yeah, accessibility focus on the tools, for example the screen readers, on how they will be um, useful to our users to access or to check our sites, and user experience and their focuses more with the users of those technologies. Yeah, based on my readings, I think that is a good acceptable answer, I think.
Yeah, yes, Wayne. Next question: are there careers focused on accessibility? How lucrative are they?
Yeah, currently I'm reviewing for my certification regarding web accessibility specialist. So I'm still on the process of reviewing and preparing for my what do you call this certification. But yeah, we for accessibility there are also um what do you call this certifications focuses on those. I think you could check it with I I AAP. So I can send the link so that you could also check. Um, it's a certification for International Association of Accessibility and what is the last? What is P? Professionals. Yeah. So I can put the link here on the chat so that you can check it. Yeah. So I'm taking the WAS, Web Accessibility Specialist. So it focuses on the HTML, the semantics, and the success criteria for accessibility. And they answer his question or her question?
Yeah, I think so. Then another link related question: can you share the link that provides Ali certification?
Ali, okay. So I think I've already sent it, but if you wanted to focus with um, like the one I'll be taking, I could share the link. Oh, wait. IAP, yeah. So it includes exam preparation.
And maybe while you're sharing the link, I had a question related to certification. Why do you think are certifications important as well for accessibility?
I think it is important to have certification because we'll be able to really understand on how we should create, on how we should evaluate accessibility on a website. For example, on the course or the certification that I'll be um, taking, like web accessibility specialist. So it focuses more on the technical side of the technical code, not really doing programming, but understanding the flow or the like the semantics or the HTML itself and how accessibility should be implemented properly. So did I answer your question?
Yep.
Yeah.
So maybe we have room for like maybe 2 to 3 more questions. So next question is, why do you think accessibility testing is somehow not prioritized by other companies?
Mm, I think one of the reason is probably um their website is not front end facing or user, but what is the other term for that? It's like internal projects, or maybe the company um is not yet able to consider doing accessibility checks for their sites. But I think the one that I'm thinking is usually accessibility testing should be considered for those um, things that their website is front and facing, or yeah, um, users are really using it, because some are like internal projects only. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Next, when do we know when to apply accessibility testing to our websites?
What is that? When?
When do we know when to apply accessibility testing to our websites?
When? I think we should apply it from the very start. I think we should consider to have accessibility checks during development, because I think if we let it we deploy everything already on production, and that is the only time that we check accessibility. I think the time and the cost for fixing those bugs is um, might be affected by the performance of the team. So I think the time is during development, or yeah, we should also already consider it. Did
Okay.
I answer the question?
Yeah, and I think one other way to interpret this question, maybe if I'm a team in developing a website, when is it not acceptable to test its accessibility, or are there any, for example, just some websites that should be tested, that where I should test accessibility, or do we expect every type of website to, to perform accessibility testing as possible?
Hmm, wait, it's hard the question, but any type. Yeah, I think we have types of application that we should check. But for me, I usually check um, everything, because for example, the Google, um, because it is being widely used by most of us. So I think if Google is being accessible with, for example, keyboard, so um, I think without using my mouse, I still be able to use them, or yeah, access the sites. I think it should be widely used by the web, or yeah, accessibility should be checked with different sites, but the good sites. Yeah.
Okay. Last question here in Slido, is usability and accessibility testing the same? So usability
Usability.
and accessibility.
Mm, somehow they're not the same, but because accessibility has its own like guidelines and standards, and yeah, as I've mentioned earlier, they focus more with the technologies that we use. But for usability, they are more with how the user, what are the behaviors of the users using the sites or the technologies. And I think it's the journey of the users as well for the usability. But somehow, hmm, Maybe who gave that question? I should get back to.
It's anonymous. Yeah.
Oh my god,
Just,
that's very hard question.
yeah, I think we can answer in the meetup page
Yeah,
in
yeah.
case you have follow up. Oh,
Oh,
it's J
you
Boy
should
Kim.
message me. I'll message you.
Um,
I
yeah.
think Ben has a question here on the
Yeah.
chat.
Let's take that.
Um, no, it's okay, AJ. Is there a standard? I think that's we don't make the standard for alt text. If you check with the link that I've sent or on our slide, there are useful tips. But we don't have like a standard, but there are tips that we could use so that like it's a what do you call this? It's not really the standard, but the best practice on how to create an alt text for an image. And how do we measure if this alt text contents are effective? Um, how do we measure? What do you mean? How do you measure? I think if we check the alt text, if it is easy to understand as part of the principles of accessibility, it should be robust and understandable. So I think that way we could measure that the alt text that we put there is effective or being easily understood. And um, yeah, did I answer your question, Ben? But yeah, I'll take a look on that.
Maybe the measure we need some rating, for example, or some comparison. Do we have something to compare it against with?
I think no. It's just that if the alt text that we put or the contents that we use for the alt text is useful, is understandable and robust, I think it's a great alt text. Yeah, and it's easily to be understood by our users and yeah, being announced by the screen readers. So for example, if you put your alt text that it's very long and the users might be confused, so I think it's not a good alt text. So like yeah.
Okay, and I think that's that wrap ups our session for tonight. Thank you very much, Wing. Sorry, guys, if we extended a bit, but the conversations are very great. I hope you learned more about accessibility today, and see you in our next meetup. Good night, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.